One of the other comments, Tom, that we have from YouTube on the CUSAC symposium clips that we've recently put out is the only question I have is why is this only obvious to a minority of humans?
Well, that's because it represents a paradigm shift, a very big paradigm shift, a much bigger paradigm shift than science or even the soft sciences or humanity has never gone through a paradigm shift this big. Now we see paradigm shifts come and go, in our history. The first big one was that the Earth was the center of the universe. Well, that's because you look out at the sky and you see that the sun comes up and goes around and then comes back up in the east and sits in the west, and it looks like it's going around us. And the stars do the same thing. They come up in the east, they set, they go around us. So if everything is going around us, then we must be at the center. It only makes sense. So that was a big paradigm shift when they found out that the world actually spins on its axis, and that's why everything looks like it's going around it. It's us that's going around, and the rest of that stuff looks like it's fixed. It isn't really fixed either, but it's so far away that we don't notice the motion that it's going through, so it looks like it's fixed. So that was the first big paradigm shift, and that was one in science. Then the following big paradigm shift was that the Earth is round and not flat. And again, if it were flat, the oceans would just drain off the sides and there wouldn't be any oceans. You couldn't have oceans because they'd all run off and fall off the edges. And anything on the other side would fall off. So it would be a very ridiculous kind of world to have. And besides, anybody knows that they can stand and look across a plain and a flat spot and it just seems to go on forever. It just looks flat. Seems to be flat. Yeah, it's got bumps in it like mountains and things, but basically it's flat. And that made sense until people came up with the concept of gravity. Oh, gravity. Yeah, okay, things don't fall off. The oceans don't fall off. And yes, a plane seems to fly flat and level, on and on and on, flat and level. How could it possibly be going around the Earth and still stay flat and level? Wouldn't it go upside down? No, because gravity points toward the center of the Earth, and down is defined as toward the center of the Earth. No matter where you are on the Earth, down is always toward the center, you see, and up is the opposite direction away from the center. So the vector called down keeps changing as you go around in your airplane. So that's a concept of gravity that people just didn't get. And that took 200 years for that concept, after it was well understood, say, by the Greeks. Easy, there's lots of information, like you watch a ship sail off from a port. And you first, when it's near, you see the whole ship. Then you only see the upper half of the ship. Then you only see the mast of the ship. And eventually the flag at the top disappears. And the ship looks like it's sinking into the ocean as it goes away. Well, now, why would it do that? One would expect to see the whole ship and it just gets hazier and foggier and tinier as it goes away. But it shouldn't be sinking, but it does. And we've known that since we've had ships. That goes back a long time ago. So in the moon, when you look at the phases of the moon, what do you see on the moon? The moon isn't a square or a rectangle or something, but the moon has this circular cusp in it. So you get a half moon and it's like this, because it's a circle. That's the shadow of a sphere on the moon. It's not the shadow of a flat surface on the moon wouldn't make a curved shadow. So there was lots of everyday information that told people that the Earth was round, but it didn't make sense to them because they didn't understand gravity. So once they got that, all the pieces fell in. The paradoxes were solved, and that is a paradigm shift. Well, those two shifts took a long time to sink in people's minds. And both of those shifts were seen as ridiculous and stupid when they, first came out. Well, of course, the world has to be flat. And of course, everything goes around us. We're at the center. So this is a paradigm shift that's 100 times bigger than both of those. And there's other paradigm shifts too that aren't in science, sometimes they're in technology, like the Industrial Revolution. That was a big paradigm shift from agriculture to industrialization, total shift in the nature of reality. And then there's smaller paradigm shifts when we got telephones, and then when we got electricity, and then when we got the internet, all of these things, cell phones, they all shift the paradigm. I mean, how many people now would know how to get by in their life if they didn't have a cell phone? My goodness, somebody's taking a trip. It's a vacation. They'll be gone for a month and you'll have no idea how to contact them. Hopefully a month later they'll come back, but you never know. It's one of those things. So life has changed now, and we don't think and feel the same way we used to. These paradigm changes change us. What they do is they change our viewpoint and our understanding of what reality is all about. They're kind of an upgrade in our understanding of how reality works. Now, the next big paradigm shift that we're going to have to deal with is that material, is not the fundamental thing in our reality, that consciousness is. That's a real big paradigm shift. And it has a lot of logical consequences. And just like the other paradigm shifts, it resolves a whole host of paradoxes. Once you get that, then all of these paradoxes just start to fall into place. Quantum physics isn't weird. Of course, there's probability, at the core. Relativity isn't weird. Of course, speed of light has to be a constant. And all these other things that are paradigm shifts in philosophy and theology and science, all of them get obvious answers that, oh, yeah, now that I think of it, yeah, the Earth does have to be round because of those ships thinking like that. So eventually it'll be the same thing. Oh, it's obvious. Consciousness is the fundamental thing that creates everything else. But anyway, this shift is going to be very, very big. And it's going to be very, very important because the belief in materialism comes with an ethic of control, power, force. And why is that? Because if you have a material world, then how does it work? Well, that material is just out there for you. So you can grab as much of it as you could grab, and then you have to fight to keep it and control it. That takes force, and then you can sell it to others or keep it for yourself or do whatever you want with it, because now you're the owner. It's yours. You see, so it fosters self-centeredness, it fosters greed, it fosters control, power, and force. Whereas when we go through this paradigm shift, we'll realize that the ethic that's attached to that shift is love, consideration, cooperation. How can I help? Not what's in it for me. This paradigm shift is a very big one, and it's going to be very difficult for people to get it. It was more obvious that, oh, the Earth rotates, I see, and oh, there's gravity, I see. But this is, oh, consciousness is fundamental. That's a bigger step. So that's why there's so few people who really get it. Now there's tens of thousands of people who get that intellectually, but to actually get it at a fundamental level, at the being level, is a different thing, because then you actually become something different, because you understand that it's caring, cooperation. That's what's fundamental, not how much can I grab and how much can I, how can I keep it? It's not all about control, power, force, but yet you live in a world that is all about control, power, and force. And that transition is going to be a bit rocky. And I think we'll probably make it in the next couple of decades, because this is just better science. Just like understanding that the world wasn't flat, it's just better science. It allows us to do things that you couldn't do otherwise. It's just better science. So this is just better science. It solves a lot of scientific paradoxes. So I think it'll win out. The truth isn't fragile. The truth can take a beating and still float up to the top once people realize that it is the truth. So that's the big thing. And it's hard for people to understand it because it is so far away from what they have believed. It is so counter to materialism. Consciousness is not a material thing. The brain does not produce consciousness. Consciousness produces the brain when you look at one. If you cut open a skull, you'll find a brain. If you don't cut open the skull, the brain's never rendered, doesn't even exist. So that's a difficult thing for people to realize they live in a virtual reality. And I've been talking about this since I published the books in 2003. And in 2003, there were no virtual reality games. They were just beginning, and they were stick figures that went around like this. You know, they looked like little stick people staggering around, and they were not very realistic. But since then, we've produced virtual reality games that look very, very convincing. If you put on those virtual reality goggles and get into one, and suddenly your world tilts in that virtual reality, well, you'll tilt too if you're not holding on to something, and you'll fall right on the floor, because in your mind and your body, you're tilting. Even though you're standing on a perfectly flat floor, you're liable to fall over, because that's what your vision and your ears are telling you. Well, think of a virtual reality that isn't just vision and sound. It's everything. It's smell, it's touch, it's flavor, everything. You see? So this is a virtual reality. It's consciousness is the computer. It's being computed within consciousness. Consciousness is an information system. We're evolving toward love and caring and cooperation. That's a really big change from control, power, force. And we've got a very heavy dose of control, power, force everywhere in the world right now. And shifting that into love, caring, and cooperation isn't going to happen on a dime. So you have a lot of people whose control, power, and force is only existent because everybody believes it.
We have to keep an open mind to your theory. If you're wondering why it's not obvious to most humans, is because they are caught up in what the culture has presented to them for so long. So to advance this theory, keep an open mind and look for something that will bring you a better paradigm of love and cooperation instead of what we have now.
Yeah, and it'll solve all those paradoxes. You know, all the paranormal things are paradoxes. You know, remote viewing, it's a thing. And if you don't believe that, if you think that's a hoax, well, just go and Google it, and you'll find that some of it isn't done to real tight, or shall I say, laboratory specs, but you'll find a lot of other parts of it are. And you'll find groups of people who are very scientific in their process, very careful with their methodologies, and that it's a real thing. Same with mind-to-mind communication, telepathy. You know, we just had the telepathy tapes come out. You know, yeah, it's a real thing. It happens. People can do it, and actually anybody can do it. It's something that you can learn to do. So all of those things that are paranormal, healing with the mind, yes, well, we know that's real because of the placebo effect. What you believe can affect your health. So we know there's a connection between mind and health. So all of these things are real things, just not understood. Science doesn't understand them because they're stuck in a materialist viewpoint. And from a materialist viewpoint, these things can't exist. So they just claim, well, my belief says it can't exist, so therefore it doesn't exist. And no, I'm not budging from my belief just because you have facts to the contrary. But even if you have a science called quantum physics to the contrary, I still won't believe it. So people who are believers, they think their beliefs are facts, and they're stuck there with a bunch of facts that aren't true, but they believe them. So it's going to take a while before people see the bigger picture. And I'm hoping that in another couple of decades will be enough, because, you know, it took a long, long time before the Earth wasn't seen as the center. That took probably a millennia. And it took, 200 years that the Earth was seen not as flat, but as round. Industrial Revolution and all the revolutions in technology that came with it, that's about 150 years we've been working on that technology. And this one is going to take even less time. So you see the times get shorter and shorter and shorter. Well, this one now is in the information age, and information travels at the speed of light, not at the speed of somebody walking from one town to another. And this revolution, when it starts to go and go mainstream, I suspect within a decade, it will be dominant, and the scientists will all move to it. They'll let materialism go, and we'll have a whole new set of ideas and understandings of the way the world worked. And that won't be so much a big boost in technology, but it'll be a huge boost in how we treat each other, in how we connect. There'll be a huge boost from the viewpoints of psychology, sociology, medicine. Lots of things will change dramatically. So those technologies and understandings that have to do with people and relationships and connections and sustainability and all of that will change dramatically. And those are the things that really make our life either comfortable and nice or terrible. So that's the stuff that really needs to change. We don't have to have a big change in technology. We've already got the technology now to do most of what we need to do. But growing up, our sense of what fairness, our sense of morality and ethics, that's where we are lacking sorely. We haven't made much progress there. We're still pretty much in the controlled power force camp of might makes right. So big changes are coming, but that's why it's going to take a long time. I mean, it's not going to take, I don't think it'll take a century, certainly not a millennia, but you'd think that once you understand it, it's like, that's obvious. Now I understand all these things I didn't understand before. You'd think that everybody would do that, but you cannot change a believer's beliefs with rational arguments. Belief is fundamentally irrational, and a rational argument does not sway or phase someone who is irrational. It just takes them time before they let go of their irrational beliefs, and that has to be in the face of kind of overwhelming evidence. Then they'll maybe let go of it. Well, we're not there yet. Now we have theory, we have understanding, we know things we didn't know before. Paradoxes are being solved, but to the average person walking around, nothing much has changed. They haven't gotten onto that boat yet, but another decade or two, we'll probably get through that, or three maybe. We'll get through all that, and we'll come out the other side a much better, a much more humane bunch of humans.
Thank you, Tom. I know you addressed his why isn't this more obvious to humans comment. So that was really well done. Thank you. And thanks for your comment. Love is the answer. If there's one way to discover this truth that Tom Campbell, physicist and consciousness expert, has concluded, it is through your own experience. Give yourself the gift of experiencing yourself. After all, Tom has stated so many times that if it's not your experience, it's not your truth. So learn to experience with Tom's Exploring Consciousness and Everything Paranormal program, and unlock those natural abilities for yourself. Discover why love is the answer. Binaural beats included to assist you. Details are in the description below. Thank you.
I and MBT Events hope you like this video. If you do, then you should consider being a Patreon member, because Patreon members get early access to our special content. You will also be able to get your questions answered by me in special Q&A sessions, and most importantly, your contribution as a patron member will enable us to produce the content that you're looking for. So thank you.